Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there. Good morning. Today is April 7th, 2025. We're talking with Joe Spackman, who served in the United States Army. So good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
It's great to see you here.
Nice to be here.
Yes, and we're glad that you made it, even though I gave you the wrong address.
No, you gave me the right address. It's just Miss Google gave me misdirection.
Yeah, well, that's Google for you, right? Well, we'll start out real simple. When and where were you born?
I was born in Norfolk, Virginia in 1948, January of 1948.
Okay, and did you live in Norfolk most of your life, or did you move around? How'd that work out?
No. Actually, my father was a baker, a civilian baker for the naval base, and he got a job offer in Michigan when I was about 3 years old at Schaefer Baking Company. By the time he got here with the family, that job had been filled, so he got another job on West Saginaw at Goss Baking Company in Lansing. So that's how we got here to Lansing. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. I remember the old Schaefer bread place.
Yeah.
My uncle lived over there, and when I would stay with him, you'd wake up in the morning and just smell that fresh bread.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So whereabouts in Lansing did you live?
Well, I grew up, the first house we lived in was on Kavanaugh Road out by Dunkel. Mm-hmm. Then we moved, when I was about 5 or 6, we moved into Lansing on Pine Street, went to Walnut Street School, walked, then to West Junior, walked, and went to Sexton, graduated from Sexton in 1966, and walked there too until I got my brother's car and got to drive to school.
That's exciting. So,
yes.
So you had a brother. Did you have any other siblings?
No.
Okay.
Just one brother. He's a retired bird colonel from the Army.
Oh, all right.
Engineers.
Okay. Well, talk to me a little bit about what it was like growing up. Now, I know your dad was a baker. What did your mom do?
She was a housemaker.
Uh-huh.
And she did that until my father, until both of us kids were out of the house. And then she got a job at Knapp's.
Okay.
And she worked in the linen department.
I love that Knapp's store, by the way.
Yes.
I'm glad that they've kept it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
It is.
Yeah. So, if I were to ask you, what is, like, when you think about your mom, what is a memory that you have of her?
Oh, I got lots of memories.
Oh, okay.
She was, how can I say this? She was a typical middle class American woman, raising a family in Lansing. She didn't work. She never drove, because Dad had the car, and he used it to go to work and brought the money home, and that was fine. When she got her own job, she always rode the bus or walked to work, or one of us kids picked her up. And so she was quite well known by some folks. When I was in the military, part of my job was to be a secure voice communications specialist. Mm-hmm. And when I got that job, and I got sent to Berlin first, and I had to do secure voice checks and around the world just to check the system. And I once called the National Guard headquarters here on Washington Avenue. And the person who answered was the colonel at the time, and he didn't know how to go secure.
Oh.
And so I tried to talk him through it, and he says, "Well, what button do I have to push?" And I said, "There should be a little white thing on the phone cradle." "Well, I don't have one of those." "Well, thanks. I'll just, He says, "Is there anything I can do?" I said, "Yes. My mother works at Knapp's." "Oh, I've been to Knapp's lots of times." And he says, "I can stop by there and tell her that you said hi." And I said, "Okay." So he did go up, and my mother wrote to me and said, "This gentleman came up, and he said you had called him and that I was fine." So that was a pretty neat idea.
Oh, yeah. So your mom would get random visits once in a while then? Is that how that worked?
Yeah.
Thanks to you?
Yeah.
Great. So what about your dad? What are some of your memories about your dad?
Well, my dad played Santa Claus around that time of year, and he would go to Knapp's and rent the costumes that they had. And I kind of picked up that family business, but we never had to have we had these moments of when we never lacked for bread. I can tell you that.
I believe it.
But one of the things that they always gave him around, I can't remember what holiday, but they always gave him lobsters for some reason.
Oh.
And he would bring them home, and my mother would have to put them in the scalding hot water and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But he always kept them in the basement. And our house on Pine Street had a Michigan basement. And he'd always take them down there because she didn't like to see them.
Right.
And so he would go down there, and he'd take us kids down there and look at them. And you want to put your hands in the claws? No, thank you. I learned that really quick.
That's a lesson you only have to learn once, isn't it?
That's correct.
Wow. So you and your brother, is your brother older or younger?
Older, 6 years older.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like you guys hung out together then as kids.
I do have a funny story about that.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear that.
Well, we always walked to church because, unless it was wintertime, because it was just 3 blocks away. Mm-hmm. Went to Seymour Avenue Methodist Church, German Methodist Church. And one day, he was coming. We had a big social event at the church, and he brought his girlfriend home. And of course, he was driving the car, and I got out, and he was in the house with her, and I hid in the back seat and hunkered down, and they both got in the car, and as I peeked up over the back seat, he was kissing her, and I thought that was the funniest thing in the world because I was only like 11 or 12.
Right.
And I just started laughing. And the next thing I know, I get blows on the head, and the door opens and he pushes me out. But I never stopped laughing. It was just hilarious, in my opinion.
Well, speaking as a younger brother, right? That's right. That's the kind of fun that you would have.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about school.
Okay.
You kind of walk through the different schools that you went to, and it's interesting because I think of all those schools, Sexton's the only one still standing.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, they're standing, but they're no longer
are
schools.
There.
Yeah. Unlike Eastern, which is gone now.
Yes.
But that's a story for another time.
Yeah. Yes.
For sure. So what was school like for you?
It was hard. Mm-hmm. Kindergarten was tough for me because I was a literal thinker, and my parents brought me up right. And so when we had playtime, and one of the girls asked me to play house or whatever it was, and so I was getting ready to leave the house, and I gave her a kiss, and that was a bad thing to do. Even back then, it was a bad thing to do. So that was my first kiss, and probably my only one until a long time after that.
Right.
But I didn't know really how to read until I got to second grade. And I had a really good teacher. Her name is, and I'll never forget her name, Mrs. Wellman. And she taught me how to read and gave me a book that I was really interested in. So kudos to her, wherever she may be, because she was a gem.
Yeah.
And got me reading, and that's got me reading all the time now.
Uh-huh. Was that like I have to think that was like a life-changing moment. Like when you were able to read, that changes the whole game for school, especially.
Yes.
Because you have to be able to read to do math. You have to be able to read to do a lot of things, right?
You do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in third grade, I have many stories about, I almost got kicked out of class for fighting. But the teacher, again, Mrs. Sharp, I remember these teachers, 3 teachers in grade school very well.
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Sharp just calmly took me out in the hallway, and she says, I don't think your parents would be appreciative of what you're doing. And let's try to get along with people a little bit better. And I said, okay. So, and she says, I'm not going to send you to the principal's office or anything. We're just going to try this again. But remember, this is your one and only strike. And I took that to heart.
Yeah.
So then.
So who's the third teacher?
Third teacher was Mrs. Teddy.
Okay.
She was my 6th grade teacher. And she taught us to sing songs, and it didn't matter whether they were religious or secular. It didn't matter at all. She was just a pleasant person.
Uh-huh.
And I'll always remember she had gotten her thumbs crushed when she was little, and those thumbs just didn't do anything. They were just stuck out like that. And but she was very, very open and welcoming. Mm-hmm. And it also, when we go out to recess, one of the things that she did was take me to the nurse after we were playing softball, and I was catcher, and this pitcher pitched the ball, and this sadistic batter hit the ball directly between us, the pitcher and me, and we ran together and hit heads, and we were both knocked out.
Oh my gosh. Just like the cartoons.
Yes.
Did you see little birds or stars or anything when that happened?
I was just flat out gone.
Yeah.
And the next thing I remember is waking up with the nurse in the nurse's office. So somehow Mrs. Teddy got me into there, and the other person too, because he was knocked out.
Yeah.
So, and I learned how to duck at that time.
Yeah, I'll bet. So this is a point in time too where there wasn't middle school. You had, right? You went to 6th grade, and then you went to junior high.
Yes, junior high at West Junior.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about West Junior.
Well, that was my first fight that I actually got into. Mm-hmm. And that was a person who sat behind me in homeroom. That was the first experience of homeroom. But our teacher didn't very often come in because he was also the basketball coach and, that type of stuff. So he spent a lot of time in the gym, and he just figured we'd be okay on our own. And this kid behind me, I was probably at that time one of the biggest kids in school because I was bulked up, not muscular, but just fat.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
And he kept on flicking my ear, he just bing. And finally I just got so tired of that I turned around and I said, don't ever do that again. And he says, what are you going to do? So we went into the cloakroom and we started fighting. And I've never been a good boxer. And so he landed quite a few punches. But once I got a hold of him, I just got him in a headlock and started ramming his head into the wall. And I didn't stop until 3 kids got me off of him. And he never touched me again.
I'll bet. I'll bet everyone else thought twice about flicking your ear too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, all through that, how was junior high school for you then? Overall?
It was fine. I was looking forward to being in 9th grade because the 9th graders had a football team, and I always wanted to play football. So when I got into 9th grade, I tried out for the football team, and I made the team because I tackled the coach. And because I could tackle the coach, he sent me in to get my uniform, and that's how I started my football career.
Well, that could have gone one of two ways, right?
Yes, it could.
Oh my goodness! So you, what positions did you play?
I played tackle, offensive tackle.
Oh wow! All right. So that was the start of your football career?
Yes.
And then I'm assuming you go on to high school. Did you continue to play?
I did. Yeah, I played for 1 year with Russ Maples, and then 2 years with Majeski. And that's what I did. JV first, and then varsity in my senior year.
Yeah, and did Sexton and Eastern still share a field at that time?
Yes.
Okay, because that was always fun, and it seemed like when I was in school, it seemed like we always played Sexton for our homecoming, which was kind of a nightmare because that's a pretty big rivalry.
Yeah, it is. It always was.
Yeah,
a lot more so than Everett.
Yeah, I mean Everett was just kind of there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember those days, at least for me. So apparently, even back in the '60s, it was kind of the same thing.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you graduated high school in '66, you said?
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what happens. Like you get through school, you're all set, you graduate, and then what?
Then came LCC. And I've got a student deferment because there was the draft then. Vietnam was going on. And I found I got another learning lesson was that the government watches your grade point average. And when my grade point, I was not a serious student. I met Nona there, but,
Right. You were serious about Nona, just not about school.
Right.
I got you.
And she has a different story, however. So, but I found out that once my grade point fell below 2 points, I got my draft notice on Halloween of 1967, which told me to report for induction. And I said, "Oh, thrilling!"
Right? Maybe I should have studied a little more.
Yeah,
that darn Nona, she got me in trouble.
It wasn't just her. I tell you, it was the group I hung out with.
Yeah, yeah. They weren't serious students either. I take it.
No.
Okay.
No. But my one claim to fame is that I was one of the founding members of the LCC marching kazoo band.
Really?
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with that. That thing's still going on today, isn't
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah. I remember in high school it was still a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about now. I went to LCC myself for a little while. So, yeah. So founding member.
Yeah.
Did you guys march at at events, or was it just something you just did?
Well, at that time we didn't really have teams. I mean, it was just a small thing.
Yeah.
As just one building, and we didn't have any athletic facility or anything. So we just hung around and marched around with our kazoos around the hallways or, whatever. And that was about it. But
it's quite a way to not attract attention.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So you met Nona there. Let's talk about that a little bit. So how'd that go? What's your story?
Well, my story is that we met at LCC first, but actually on second, her story is much better because she also worked at the corner Quality Dairy.
Okay.
And that's where I really got to know her. But I wanted to date her because I thought she was the most beautiful woman that I'd ever seen. And I'd never had dates during high school because I was one of those kids that just was an outcast, and I lorded over that,
Yeah.
And I was a bully in my neighborhood, so I had issues.
You had stuff to work on, didn't you? That's right, Joe.
And so when I wasn't terrorizing the neighbors, and I got my mother sent me up for a lot of milk during those days, years, and so I got to know her, and I finally got the courage up to ask her out for a date, and it was the same day that she came into work and she was crying.
Oh.
And but I went ahead with it, and I asked her out for a date, and she didn't really want to go out because what had happened was the guy the other guy she was dating, she wasn't dating me, but the other guy had told her that he was getting married that week and not to her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she got jilted, and I happened to that was the day that I got enough courage to ask her out. Not a good time.
No, and thankfully not, because you'd have been the rebound guy, and nobody wants to be the rebound guy, right?
Well, I wouldn't have minded.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I want to ask, this is kind of a weird question, but which was it the Quality Dairy there on Cedar?
No, it's on the Quality Dairy on the corner of Pine Street and Saginaw.
Okay. Very familiar. I used to work at Consumers Energy. So
okay.
Yeah, right down. Okay. I was just trying to get a visual of where exactly this was at. So yeah, little Quality Dairies in all these neighborhoods. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. They're still there too.
Yes, they are.
They definitely are still selling milk.
Definitely.
But yeah, so she got jilted. You asked her out. Not a good time. What happens next?
Well, I kept on asking her.
You're persistent.
I'm
nothing
persistent.
Else.
Yeah. And finally, she decided to go out with me because she just wanted to get it over with, And so we went out, and our first date was memorable. I took her to the movies at the Gladmer Theater.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw A Man for All Seasons. And then there was a tornado alert on that night. And so we went out and chased tornadoes.
Oh.
And we almost found one over Groesbeck.
Oh, my gosh. What year would this have been?
That was, 1967.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Some wild times here. So you're out chasing to, so now you're like, oh, well, maybe this is going to work out. So did you get that second date?
I did. But she has her own story about that.
Okay.
And her perspective is.
Well, let's switch the mic over. Okay. And let's hear your story.
Well, he's accurate in a lot of the information, and the fact that I did get jilted, and the same day that I found out that person was getting married, and his first name, by the way, was also Joe.
Oh, that's easy.
And anyway, I kept putting him off and putting him off and putting him off. And finally I said, okay, let's just get this over with. So we went out on the date, and the date was as he described. And as he brought me home, he walked me up to the front door, and he didn't even attempt to kiss me. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was relieved or insulted. Okay. Right. And so he walked back to the car, and I went inside the door. And as soon as I walked inside the door and closed it, I knew he was going to be the one that I married. I did not like him at the time, but I knew he was going to be the one that I would marry.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
yes.
I like the phrase. I don't know if I was insulted or relieved.
Yeah.
I remember dating, and as a guy, even sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know if this is good or bad.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you just knew, like, it wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition at first sight then?
Well, in many ways, I think God had a way of telling me that was what was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
I didn't recognize God's presence in my life at that point in time, but looking back on it, I really feel as though, God was nudging me and saying, yep, this is the one you're going to marry.
Wow. And here you are. So I don't want to get off track, but how many years have you been married then?
It'll be 53 in May.
Yes, that guy upstairs knew what he was talking about, even if you didn't agree with him at the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
That's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that part of the story.
Okay.
I don't often get the other perspective, so this has been kind of nice. All right, so we've got her story. She's here to keep you honest, Joe.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. So so things are kind of chugging along. You're going to school. You and Nona are on the right path, sort of.
At least beginning the
Right. And then it sounds like, and then you got your notice.
I got a draft notice
Yeah.
on Halloween to report on, I think, in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that would put it in November. And went down for my physical to Detroit and passed that. Wonderful. And then the Army provided me with my first plane ride in an old DC-3 to Louisville, Kentucky, and then on a bus to Fort Knox, and spent my first week in the Army taking a battery of tests, and it was just so wonderful. And
do I note a hint of sarcasm in your voice? Is that what I'm hearing?
Just a little.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure.
And we stayed in the old 2-story barracks, wooden barracks, and from World War II. And one of the extracurricular stuff that we had to do was they offered anybody who was a draftee, if they wanted to enlist for the extra year to be an enlistee, they'd guarantee the school of your choice. So I said, where do I sign? So I had to be discharged and then enlist. So that was a wonderful morning.
Thank you, government. Can't you just extend me for a year and give me a school? No, we got to throw this paperwork.
That's right. So when I went in to get all that done, the sergeant there, he says, so what school do you want to go to? And I said, I don't know. You have all the information, because they hadn't shared it with me yet. And he gets out this list, and he's going, well, these are all the schools that that you could enlist in, to go to after basic training. So I went down. The only line that I went down was how long the school was. And they had this one that was called Fixed Siphony Repair, 32 Foxtrot. See, you get this stuff and you never forget it.
No, you don't. It's in your head. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was 38 weeks. And I said, boy, that's almost a year. That's the one I want. And he looks at it and he goes, Fixed Siphony Repair. Do you know what that is? And I said, no, neither do I. Well, what it was is secure voice communications repair. So I said, yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, why not?
It was 38 weeks. That's more than a year. So I did my 2 months at Fort Knox, went through all the wonderful conditioning and stuff like that.
Training your body and your mind.
Yes.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah. And so and the great thing was that I learned really quick that I signed up for every, what do you call it? That wasn't training, hardcore. You didn't have to do calisthenics, but you had to go and learn about this. And I signed up for jump school and fixed pilot training. And I just signed up for everything I could because I got at least 4 hours of comp time or training time without having to do calisthenics.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Do you think though that your time playing football helped you go through basic training? Were you still kind of a big guy when you went through basic? Yeah.
Yeah, I was. But I got down. The one good thing about basic training was I got to my best weight that I've ever been, and I was the fittest.
Yeah.
There were several things that the Army gave me, and one of them was I grew up. That's a very important lesson.
Absolutely.
I wasn't the same person when I came back as I was when I went in.
Yeah.
But that experience, basic training, was interesting because there was only, I would say, in my unit, my company, there was, or platoon, I don't know what it is. But anyway, most of them came from the South, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana. And our sergeant was a northern guy.
Yeah.
Our drill sergeant. And he got the 7 people that were not from the South. And he gave us all, we were platoon leaders and acting sergeant,
So there was a little bit of a benefit there, right?
Yes, there was.
Probably because he could just understand what you were saying mostly.
Probably. And he knew the caliber of education for the South in those days.
Right.
So we did get benefits.
Yeah. You got some leadership lessons too, I'm sure.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yep. Because one of the guys in my unit tried to go AWOL. And we had to go down and search for him and picked him up at the bus station before he got a chance to go back to Massachusetts.
Interesting little side note. When I went to basic training in California in the Navy, and the Navy basic training is right next to the Marine Corps basic training. Mm-hmm. And we had a guy who decided he didn't want to be in the Navy anymore. So he hopped the fence to go to the airport. Didn't realize he was hopping the fence into Marine Corps basic training. And they kept him for like a week or two.
Oh, wow.
And when he came back, he was so happy to be in the Navy.
I bet.
Navy's the best thing that ever happened to him.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you make it through basic training and you've chosen this field, which I couldn't pronounce if I tried.
Yeah.
And so where did you stay right there at Fort Knox? Or did you go someplace else?
No, they sent me to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey.
Okay.
Signal school. And by the time I got out of basic training, they'd added another equipment, which made it 48 weeks.
What a shame.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's my year right there.
Right. Yeah. So you were in the Signal Corps then?
I was in the Signal Corps.
Okay.
Yep. And got trained, went to school from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That was my school because it ran 24 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
And there were some interesting times there. I learned how to smoke, and because I noticed that the guys that smoked got breaks.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I want a break.
There's an incentive to start smoking, right?
That's right. So I did that. And so we had, I graduated, and one other person and I were sent to Berlin, Germany to set the system up for the Berlin Brigade.
Okay. Now, before we get too far into that, did you come home on leave and visit the lovely Nona at all, or did you?
Well, she came out to visit me in New Jersey.
Okay.
And we kind of got connected, but, when you're going to school and you get out at 7 a.m. and it's summer and, you're just going, oh, man, it's a bright sun. And I was sleepy. And so I put my coat over my face and took a siesta underneath a tree where I was going to meet her. And she never saw me. Of course, I can't blame her for not lifting up the coat. But,
right.
But the folks there treated her very kindly and got her set up to stay at the, what was it? The guest house.
Oh, yeah. Like I know now they call it the Army Lodge, right? Yeah. So, okay.
It'd be the guest house.
Yeah.
And I came back, nobody showed up in my conscious opinion. And So the next thing I did was go back to my company, and there's this Joe Spackman, your girlfriend is at the.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay. She did come.
Yeah.
So we got together there.
Good.
So
And then you fly off to Germany to set this equipment up.
oh yes.
So how was Germany?
Germany was nice. It was a lot better than Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which I was very happy for. And after the training, or being trained for this, it gave me the potential to have a top secret crypto clearance, and SA added onto that special, whatever. And that was one step higher than the president has.
Oh.
So
you got to know things the president didn't even know.
well, supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah, hypothetically speaking.
Yes. And it took 5 days to get all the processing into Europe and then on the duty train to Berlin, because at that time it was a divided country, and
Right.
and Berlin was divided, and got through and got picked up and taken to the company. And really, at that point in my life, I was not a Christian. I did everything I could to circumvent the church, and lo and behold, the company that I was in was stationed in the former Leibstandard Adolf Hitler barracks in Lichterfeld, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I was because I was into Nazism,
Right.
and neo-Nazism, and the occult, and I just thought, hey, this is great.
Yeah.
So after that, I when my clearance finally came, I got to go I did a lot of KP before that.
Right.
Because as you're waiting to get your clearance to go to the comm center, that's what you do. You do all the nasty stuff.
All the stuff nobody else wants to do, right?
That's correct. But one of the advantages was that I got to go up on the roof and clear the dummy mortar rounds off the roof that the Soviets and the East Germans shoot over, just to let us know that they have us pinpointed.
Right. And that they're still there.
Yes.
I want to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
How was it that you found yourself into neo-Nazism and the occult? Just curious. That's
Oh, gosh.
like you just sort of said it like, oh, this is what normally happens, but no. So I'm just kind of quickly, like, how did you get involved in that?
Well, when I was 15, I felt I had a call to go into the ministry of the Methodist Church. And so I went and talked to my pastor at that time, and he said, after he stopped laughing, he said, no, I don't think so. I think you misheard that, because the ministry is a serious path of work.
Right.
And you're not serious enough to do that. Maybe you should go into acting. So I figured if that's what he thought, then this is not the place I want to be. And I just turned and rejected God at that point in time.
All right. Yeah. I think he missed an opportunity to mentor a young man is what he did.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's a great lesson though.
Oh yeah.
Right. Even though it's kind of a negative lesson, a great lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started collecting literature on the occult, Satanism, neo-Nazism, and all that stuff, because it just interested me.
Right.
And actually, it didn't change until I got out of the Army and got reconnected her. And this young lady here, she says, why don't you go to church with me? And that's the first time I'd been in church since I left home, so to speak.
Okay.
Because my parents never let me get out and go into church on Sunday.
Right. Good for them though, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So we'll hold that thought. We'll go
Okay.
we'll go back to Germany now.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of get some background on that. Really for the audience and for anyone who listens to this later on in life, like I didn't want to just breeze past it. So
Sure.
yeah, so you're there and you're kind of in the homeland, basically.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're clearing dummy rounds off the roof.
Yes.
That doesn't really sound like a lot of fun to me, but I guess it could be.
That was it was an awakening for me.
Right.
Because, you know, right off the bat that because the mystique of Berlin Brigade is that if a shooting war heats up, the best thing that could happen would be that the East Germans and the Russians would erect signs all over the place. You're now prisoners of war, and without ever having to close anything down.
Right.
But it gave me a sense that that was true. And I have lots of stories about being buzzed by MiGs during crisis times and things like that. And there were some incidents while I was there. We had alerts every month. And in addition to my job fixing, basically carrying the daily code cards, up to the general's office to be changed daily. I had to also go to all the other spy agencies that had this secure voice system that we'd set up. And I didn't have to change their cards, but I had to repair the equipment.
Yeah.
So that's why I had the clearance to get me into every spy agency. There were 35.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, there were two of us.
Right. So you could split that up.
Yeah.
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 Well, it sounds like a really interesting job, but also if you think about the time, right, you're potentially like front line to World War III if it were to break out right
Oh,
there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the incidents that I had, the infantry provided the guards to our comm center, which was down in the basement of the building that we were in. And they would change when we had an alert, and the MPs would come and guard it. And one day I was just shooting the breeze with one of the MPs, and I said, I've noticed this. Why change the guard? And he says, well, it's like this. He says, we're trained to make sure that if shooting war starts and there's alert status, says we're here to make sure that you destroy all your equipment if need be, and then get you to the Grunwald, where we're to hold out for 2 weeks. I always thought that was funny, but we're 110 miles behind enemy lines,
right.
and we're going to hold out for 2 weeks? I don't think so.
Yeah, who came up with that? Probably someone who didn't have a clearance.
But and he says to me, he says, well, if we can't get you there, then our job is to shoot you so that you don't fall into enemy hands. And I said, who is my enemy here?
Right. Yeah. Who's the real enemy? Wow.
So that was another awakening.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of incidents that happened during that time. It was very, very enlightening for me, but it was also challenging. Because it shook my my worldview, if you will, and about how things run if you're doing what you need to do. And I haven't lost that yet. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff you can learn, especially when you're in a situation like that. It's like It's like you're at war, but you're not at war, and you just don't know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis, really.
Right. And the silliness and the inaneness of the military sometimes. Because I was carrying coded material, I was authorized to carry a weapon. Mm-hmm. And they gave me a 45 automatic, a Colt 45 automatic, but they didn't give me any bullets.
You're not even Barney Fife at that point.
And I'm going, what am I supposed to do with this gun? Throw it? I don't know. But I found out I had a very good opportunity to test the theory. Mm-hmm. When I was in the general's office, I neglected to lock the general's front door. And so I was in there, and I had the safe open, and I was putting the cards in, and the cleaning woman came in. She was German, to clean the office. And my instinct was to pull my weapon and point it at her and say, halt, you can't come in here. And she saw that gun pointing at her, and she bucket and, mop and everything else went falling all over the place. She ran out. I went over, locked the door, continued until I was done, and came out. And then I was faced with a 45 by the guard.
Right. They want to know what you were doing, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so he was a sergeant, mm-hmm. and he was going to he just read me the riot act. Oh, it was just wonderful. And I said, I went through what I'd been trained to do. You are delaying a courier with secure materials, and I just called the EO, emergency operations officer, and he'll verify my presence here. Well, he didn't do that. He called the guard of the duty officer.
Okay.
The regular duty officer, his duty officer. So then they were going to gang up on me here.
Right.
Says and he was telling me you're going to go to Leavenworth. Oh, okay. Well, just calmly sat down and got my arms across everything, and he had already taken my unloaded weapon.
Yeah. Wouldn't want you hurting yourself with that.
That's right. And so the officer of the day called the EO officer, and the EO officer read him the riot act. And the next thing I know that he calls the sergeant, and the sergeant is sitting there, and he says, "You can go. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day. Can I have my gun back?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that's interesting. Like when people don't understand what the protocol is, they think they're right, but they can get themselves in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long were you in Germany then?
I was there for 18 months.
Okay. All right. And then that was sort of your whole enlistment, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. Because with the year in New Jersey, mm-hmm. and 2 or 3 months in basic training, and that was it.
Yeah.
I think I got out a month early.
Okay.
Because I got out on what?
In December.
Yeah, December.
All right.
Home in time for Christmas.
Very nice. Very nice. So you fly back home, and you've got it sounds like some maturity and some interesting.
Oh, yes.
Interesting training, and also you learned a lot while you were there.
I did. I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you come home. Did you come right back to Michigan then?
Well, I stopped off to see the sergeant who lived in Lebanon, Ohio, mm-hmm. just outside Cincinnati. And he put me up for a couple days, and then he drove me up to Michigan.
Okay. All right. So did you out process then right back at
I flew into New York.
Okay.
And at I think it was Fort Franklin, or there in the harbor someplace.
Yeah.
Was discharged.
Okay. All right. So you go to Ohio for a couple of days, and you come back home. And what was it like coming home?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country.
It was nice coming home. I hadn't changed too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, inside I didn't feel like I'd changed some, but I had really.
Yeah.
And got reconnected with Nona,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when she invited me to go to church with her. When I first walked into the church with her, that began the process of me transforming back into something that's not on the dark side of the force.
Right. You're going to start using your powers for good at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to ask though, before we get too deep into this, like, was she still slinging milk at Quality Dairy when you got back?
No.
Okay.
No, she was going through the nursing program, weren't you?
No, I was doing that when we first met at Quality Dairy. When you came back, I believe I was working either at St. Lawrence. No, I wasn't working at St. Lawrence. I was working at Pepsi.
Where?
At Pepsi.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's working at Pepsi when
Yeah.
you get back. Okay.
Right.
All right. You're reconnected. You go to church. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
What, I mean, you didn't get hit by lightning. That was a good thing, because I would have
That's
been
correct.
I would have been afraid of that walking into church after all that time. But yeah, so you go to church.
She was teaching Sunday school, little kids.
2 and 3-year-olds.
Yeah. And you went to was Christ United Methodist Church on Jolly Road.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walked in the door, one of the first people that met me was my homeroom teacher from Sexton.
Oh.
And he welcomed me, and he remembered me, and he didn't treat me like a student. He treated me like any other person that would come into the church.
Yeah.
And then I met my algebra teacher and my chemistry teacher, and I'm going, and they all treated me like I was not one of their students now, but they remembered me.
Right. You were an adult.
I was an adult.
And this was what, 1971?
71, yeah.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like a good experience when you first get
Oh,
there.
yeah. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we got serious in our relationship, and we got married in the church at 1972. And in 74, we both accepted Christ, and we became... We took over the senior high youth group.
Okay. All right. Before we talk about this, it sounds like this is going to be a good story. Before we talk about that, talk to me about like that moment that you like realized in your heart. You know what I'm talking about? Like anyone who's a Christian who may not have been a Christian before, like there's this moment where you realize this is for me.
Yeah.
Right. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, we had gone to a lay witness mission. It was 4 days?
Yeah.
From Thursday through Sunday. And we first signed up to help out, in the kitchen and that type of stuff. But we also attended, and the testimonies of the folks were very moving, very authentic. And at the end of with the final worship, they asked anybody who was convicted or, whatever, to come forward. And I went forward, she went forward, and we cried, and that changed. That was a life-changing event.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who doesn't understand that word convicted, that's like, it's hard to describe, but it's like that feeling in your heart that that, it's just time to give your life over to Christ. And that's when we talk about conviction in the church, that's really what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's what John Wesley talked about in his conversion when he felt his heart strangely warmed.
Yes.
That he could believe in God and Christ for salvation.
Yes.
And it's an amazing feeling.
It became real.
Yeah, it
Right.
became real. It was the difference between knowing about God and knowing God.
Yes. And it's really the difference between a feeling and an actual conversion.
Yes.
Right? Because you can feel something
Right.
that makes you go to the altar and convert, but it's the actual like change in your life that happens, not just some feeling you get, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you both on the same day.
Yes.
Wow.
At the same event.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And after that, I felt the call again from God.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and talked to my pastor then, and he affirmed it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the difference. I had to go through this training process.
So do you think, earlier on, this is interesting to me. So earlier on, I made kind of the comment that guy missed out on a chance to mentor a young man.
Mm-hmm.
But do you, when you look back, it's kind of God's plan. You had to go through all that other stuff.
Right.
And figure out that this is what you needed in your life. And then here you are.
Right.
Right. So it's that whole, everything happens for a reason, but we could, when we look back on it, it all seems to make sense.
Yeah. And I look back on it as a training ground for what I was going to be doing in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really, when I was serving in Allegan, one of our youth group in the Allegan there was dating a girl who was all dressed in black and, had the kind of like the white pancake stuff, a goth.
Yeah.
And he brought her to church where I was preaching. And as she was going out, she said, "Hi, I'm Satan." And I looked at her, and I think she was just trying to get a shocking response from me.
Right.
But I said, "No, I've seen Satan, and you're not him." And that stopped her short. And she says, "Well, I'm Satan." "No." I said, "I've seen Satan, and you are not him, but you're always welcome here." And that made all the difference in her life. She transformed her life. She didn't go to our church,
Right.
but she ended up going to a church that would accept her for who she was at that point, and she turned her whole life around. So, but if I hadn't had the experience of Black Sabbath and all that other junk, maybe I would have reacted a different way.
Right.
But because I had that, then I had.
Well, it's meeting people where they're at, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget, like Jesus ate with tax collectors and prostitutes.
Oh, yes, he did.
He didn't hang out at the, at the club and
No.
hang out with all the good folk. He hung out with people that needed him to hang out with them.
Right.
And sometimes I think we forget that.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're moving along. You got married in 1972, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're gonna tell me that you both were like over a high school group or something before I rudely interrupted you.
We were the youth group leaders at Christ Church.
Okay.
We've been also youth leaders in about every church we've been into except the last one and that type of stuff. But being in Lansing, we had people coming from almost every high school, Okemos, Sexton, Everett, Waverly.
Don't forget Eastern, Joe.
I wouldn't forget that.
Okay,
no.
I just want to make sure.
And they didn't get along because they were from every high school in the area,
Right.
and the rivalries kept. And there were a couple there was one from Everett and one from Okemos, yes. And we took the youth group, 10 of them, to Frakes, Kentucky on a work and encounter mission. And the work part of it was that we helped the community down there with various tasks. One of them was canning, because we went down in the fall.
Summer.
Yeah, canning and painting, and because they put me to work driving truck and and things like that, rounding up cattle, whatever.
Just sort of whatever needed to be done, it sounds like, yeah.
And we were there with and doing this with a youth group from Florida, and we'd never met, until we got to Frakes, and boy, the kids learned a lot about us, and we learned a lot about them. But these two girls, one from Everett and one from Okemos, they didn't get along anytime during youth group. And they were put to a 4-day task of painting this little block storage shed.
Yeah.
They had to work out their differences, and they did. And they came back fast friends, and they still are. And, that's amazing. And over the years, we have encountered, it's a good word, encountered several of our former youth group people that are still active in the church. And what that helps me, both of us, think is we made an impact, a positive impact on these people.
Yeah, the seed you planted grew.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Not 100%, but a lot.
Yeah.
For sure. So when you left the military, you essentially went right into ministry then?
No.
Okay.
We didn't know what God had in mind. We just knew that we wanted to dedicate our service for God's good.
Okay.
And so we were thinking about, we were thinking about going into missionary work. But it was pretty definite that God wanted me to be a United Methodist pastor, and he wanted me to be ordained.
Okay.
So we went to seminary. And this is a couple of years after, because I was involved in the Lake Lansing dredging project. I was working at an engineering firm at the time, and I worked my way up from draftsman to inspector, and then construction inspector. And that's where my boss sent me, was to the Lake Lansing dredging project, because it had never been done on that scale. And he told me what I needed to look for, and I looked for that, and did all the things. And hey, I got to drive a pickup truck. That's the only time I've ever driven a pickup truck.
Can't go wrong.
I know.
Yeah.
And I had access to a pontoon boat. Never had a pontoon boat before either. So
Everything's looking good for you, Joe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I was out there for about 5 years.
Oh.
While they dredged.
Yeah, that was a huge project.
It was, and it'll never be done again.
No.
It's too expensive and too much controversy.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. And then after that, my first job after the military was at an architectural firm, where I worked my way up from office boy and gopher to a draftsman. I was a plumbing draftsman there. And then one of the engineers left to go to Snell Environmental Group, and they needed another draftsman. So he suggested that I called the company and interviewed and got the job, and had another close group of friends.
Yeah.
We hung out with, we almost got kicked out of Clara's, yes.
Clara's. I remember Clara's.
Yeah.
Downtown there.
And we weren't drinking. We were just boisterously involved in having fun,
Somebody thought you were drinking, must be.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Because we were making too much noise.
So how long were you there then at the architectural firm though?
The architectural firm was only a couple years.
Okay.
And I got laid off.
Yeah.
And I was only off for a month or so when I got a call from Bob Newman about applying at Snell Environmental Group.
Okay.
And Snell had bought the building that was the church I grew up in.
Oh.
Seymour Avenue, right on the corner of Saginaw and Seymour.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so I could tell them a lot about the building they were in.
Oh, I'll bet.
Because I knew every nook and cranny of that place.
You knew all the hiding places. Yeah. So, did you go? I just want to kind of put the timeline together. So, did you go to seminary while you were doing all of this, or you went to seminary after?
After.
So, seminary was like a second career for you.
Oh,
then.
yes.
So
Yes,
how long?
definitely.
So how long were you at Snell?
I was there for about, 5-6 years?
Okay.
Well, at least 6 or 7.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Because I was a draftsperson for 2 or 3 years until they got the contract for the lake dredging project.
Yeah.
And then I got connected with that.
Okay. So you're doing that for 5 years,
Yeah.
right? And then
And I had to finish up my undergraduate degree.
okay.
And I applied at Michigan State, and they did not have any religious studies there.
Right.
So I ended up going to Spring Arbor for my year and a half or 2 years to get my undergraduate degree. Because
Okay.
I finished up my 2-year degree from LCC
Yes.
in general education, I might
Yes.
add.
I want to ask you.
Humanities.
I want to ask you a question about LCC.
Yeah.
So I went to LCC right out of high school, and I got terrible grades, so I joined the military. So fast forward, I had to get my undergrad when I went to officer candidate school, and this was probably close to 30 years after I had gone to LCC, but I was going back to LCC to work through their program.
Uh-huh.
And I, even though it was 30 years ago, they put me on academic probation based on my grades from years ago. So I just wondered if I guess your grades were good enough to be there, but not good enough to stay out of the military.
Right.
Whereas my grades were horrible. But anyway, yeah. So they held that against me. Did they do that to you?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to. I was on probation until I got it up above 2.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I graduated with maybe a 2.8, but I was a lot better student,
Right.
and that's how low my grades got.
You learned a few things, right?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get your undergrad, and then at what point did you go to seminary? Then what year would that have been?
Was that 1983 we went? 'Cause I graduated in 87.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So where'd you go to seminary?
In Dayton, Ohio, at United Theological Seminary.
Okay. And that was 4 years long then for you.
It was, it was 3 years of classroom, but I took a year off to go to England for a year
Okay.
to be the student pastor at Wesley's Chapel in London.
Oh, how cool. That must have been a great experience.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
We learned more about Wesley and Methodism than we ever thought we'd ever learn. Even the backdoor stories.
Right. Are they affiliated with the Wesleyan College down in Virginia?
Well, that's Wesleyan faith came out of that.
Okay.
Methodism got started here in the colonies in 1784 at the Christmas conference in Baltimore, Ohio.
Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore, yeah, not Baltimore.
Baltimore,
Ohio.
Maryland.
Baltimore, Maryland.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I had relatives that attended that
Okay.
from Pennsylvania, because that's where my family's from. And so I learned that, and I've had I come from a line of Methodists. My one great relative, great relative in the 1800s was a lay preacher for the Methodist circuit in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. And I have his certificate of that he can do that.
Yeah. That's a nice piece of history for your family.
It is.
Yeah. Interesting fun fact. I was baptized at the United Methodist Church on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's not a Methodist church anymore. It's something else. But yeah, it was a Methodist church when I was a kid.
Calvary.
Yeah.
Sycamore Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sycamore Creek.
Yeah, it's
now.
Sycamore Creek now. Yep. But it was.
Still a Methodist church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Didn't know that. But yeah, it was the United Methodist Church when I was a kid. So you go to England, you hang out there for a year.
Yep.
Learn a lot of great stuff. I'm assuming.
Yes, I found out that about a lot of religions because one of the duties of the student pastor, because they had several student pastors, we were the first to go. I was the oldest to go, chosen to go. There's one a year, and I was the only married one to go. And it was good that she went along because she helped set up the computer system at Wesley's Chapel. And she has that skill because I don't. And I found out that part of my task was not only to assist the pastor, the head pastor, on Sunday mornings, but also do the Thursday a midweek service at noon for the business district, because City Road is in the middle of the mile square of central London. And it's basically office buildings. So we'd open up the church for tours and of Methodists and anybody else who wanted to come by. But also we had a service every week. And that was my job of running that. And then also being the free church chaplain at the City of London Polytechnic and the City University in Clerkenwell and right across the street from the Tower of London. And as part of that, my duties were to provide pastoral care and services, if you will, to anybody who wasn't Anglican, Church of England, or Roman Catholic. So that included Druids, Baptists, everybody else that had Muslims, Buddhists, and
wow.
So I learned a lot about a lot of that stuff and the religions, and just by osmosis.
Right. What great experience to have under your belt.
Oh yeah.
Right. So when you come back, so you, so how did that work? You were 2 years in Ohio and then a year.
Yeah. The first 2 years I was in Ohio.
Yeah.
Attending classes, going through the regular seminary.
Right.
Third year we were in London. And the fourth year, then I came back to my senior year to get my degree.
Okay. All right. And then, so in 1987, it sounds like you got your degree.
Yes.
Where'd you go from there?
Then I began to be a circuit pastor.
Okay.
From being the churches.
And a circuit pastor means you didn't have like one church, right?
Well,
is that
that's
what that
very
means?
True. When I was going to Spring Arbor College to get my undergraduate degree, I was a student pastor at Mulliken, and which was quarter time. And when I went to seminary, usually in the scheme of things in the Methodist Church, you don't go back to any place you've been for quite some time. So when I got my first appointment, they had made Mulliken and Ceboa Center out by out west side of
by Grand Ledge, sort of.
Yeah. Beyond there.
Oh, you're fine.
And and she is from Sunfield. So that was like going home for her.
Yeah.
And her parents became members of the church, and so that's where they sent me for my first 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Then we went to 3 churches north of St. John's, and then to 1 church in Allegan and 1 church in Pawpaw. And then I retired, and then I spent 11 years at Delta Mills in northwest Lansing.
Okay. Familiar with that area too. Yeah. So even though you're retired, you weren't really retired.
No.
Yeah.
Now I'm retired.
Yeah. So you're not doing any of that now.
Yes, I am. I'm teaching Sunday school.
Of course. You just can't get away. Like, yeah, I retired from 2 different jobs and I still do this. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Like, I think if I didn't do something, I'd really,
Yeah.
yeah.
And God still blesses me with the skills he's taught me.
Yeah.
And so I use them.
Yeah. And that's good. Now, a question I have is I noticed that we didn't talk about children, and I have to ask it, did you have kids or you were just raising everybody else's kids?
Yes, we raised everybody else's kids. We were not blessed with children,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for lack of trying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, got to do what you got to do there, Joe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you're retired, but you're still teaching Sunday school, right? And
We're doing pastoral care,
okay.
helping out with the pastoral care.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's it sounds very fulfilling.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to do.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to worry about all the paperwork or anything like that.
Right. Right. It's like being a reserve cop, right? Like you get to do the good parts, but you don't have to worry about all the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. So, you've lived a full life, and it's been interesting to hear where you started and where you're at now. So I do want to ask, I have 2 questions. The first one is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to make sure that we do talk about?
The reunion with your Army people.
Oh, yeah. I'm still involved with the folks that I met in the military from Berlin. And we meet every 2 years anywhere in the country.
Wow.
We haven't been to Texas yet, but we've been to New Hampshire. We have one couple that lives in Muskegon, so we've been here. They've come to our house and things like that. But we've also been Branson, Missouri, Ohio. Yep.
Yeah. When's the next one?
This coming September, we're going to York, Pennsylvania, or that area.
Oh, nice.
And it'll be the first time for the guy that lives there. He's never been able to make any of them. So,
isn't it really interesting to reconnect with your Army buddies, your military friends? Because for me, it always seems like, hey, we just pick up where we left off. Nothing really changes.
Right. And she was not a part of it because I wasn't married.
Yeah.
And the others were so far. So, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I hung out with all these married people.
Right. Probably kept you on the straight and narrow, maybe.
I think that was planned as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good that you stay connected. I find that people either do or they don't, but it's really good. I think that's it's part of your history, right?
Yeah. And we're very good friends still with folks that I worked with at Snell Environmental Group.
Okay.
Except for some losses we've had.
Right.
But that happens in life.
Yeah. Especially as we get older, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I turned 60 today. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Another time around the sun, I guess I got. So that's good. So really I have one final question to ask you, and that is, as people listen to this story and hear about your life, what message would you have for them?
You're never too bad, lost, or not grown up enough to change.
Great message. And I want to say thank you to both of you for taking time out of your day to be here with us. And I look forward to talking with you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives Podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives Podcast.